Good morning, everybody. Happy Sunday. One more Sunday, and football will be back in full capacity. We are a week away from our first NFL Sunday of the year, and of all the things going on in Seahawks Nation right now, this is probably the most exciting. It's the possibility of the lottery ticket that you picked up back in April actually coming up with the big numbers. You know those possibilities are not that high. Those possibilities kind of low. But for one reason or another, you find out that the odds of those numbers hitting just went through the roof. They're still not 100% or anything like that. But you can look at it now and go, this is something that really feels like it might happen. I'm talking about Tariq Woolen, and I'm talking about some of the recent comments from Richard Sherman. Now, obviously, this story kind of starts with the fact that now that Russell Wilson is gone, Richard Sherman seems perfectly happy to return to the building and perfectly happy to be linked with the Seattle Seahawks in some capacity. Now, Richard Sherman, I don't appreciate some of the things he said and did after leaving Seattle. I think that there's something to be said for professionalism, even if you're not in love with one of your coworkers. He said some things about the fan base last year that I didn't care for. That hasn't gone away, but the point is, with Wilson out of the picture, Sherman is back to help the team in some capacity. It looks like now that I don't know if he's officially retired yet, but that's obviously where we're headed. Could barely get a job in the NFL last year, and now he's just 1 year older and 1 year less capable. So, with his playing career quite possibly over, he's involved in the Seahawks facility again. And he has particularly taken a shine to the guy that everyone probably kind of thought he would take a shine to. That is Tariq Woolen. And recently it has been said, reported all over the internet. This particular Twitter account has one example of the headline. Former Seahawks cornerback Richard Sherman says he's going to impart his wisdom to rookie cornerback Tariq Woolen. Furthermore, on his podcast, Richard Sherman also said that he thinks that Woolen is going to start week one. So, granted, he's not the one who gets to set the lineup, but he seems to have it on good word that he's going to start, which is scary, but also kind of exciting at the same time, right? So, to take us back to the draft here real quick, when we drafted Tariq Woolen, I was pumped. I love that pick. I viewed him as a third rounder. When he was there in the fifth round, I didn't think we were going to draft him because we had just taken Kobe. I didn't think we were going to double up at corner. And then we take Tariq Woolen, and I was just, I couldn't believe that we actually went for that. And I couldn't believe that this perfect fit. Like sometimes a player goes to a team and you just look at it as a fan and then you just go, God, that makes way too much sense. It always had to happen like that, right? Like when Ed Reed went to the Ravens. When you saw Ed Reed play in college, you were like, that dude looks like a Raven. And then he went to the Ravens, and it was just like, yeah, that makes a ton of sense. All the sense in the world. So, Tariq Woolen coming to the Seahawks, it just, you know that there's only maybe a 3% chance nominally because there are 32 NFL teams, but you're like, man, Tariq Woolen as a Seahawk makes way too much sense, and then it happens. You're like, oh yeah. But you know that Woolen, for all of his potential, is a long shot in the NFL because he only played cornerback for like 2 years before getting drafted. So, in many ways, you're taking a guy who, a pretty high percentage of the time, never does anything in the NFL because he was playing receiver until, like it wasn't until COVID that he even learned how to play cornerback. There was a story that got released after he got drafted about how an indoor football player actually taught him how to read schemes, taught him coverage during COVID because he was trying to decide if he wanted to switch to cornerback or not. And some guy who played cornerback in like an indoor football league was like on Instagram, yeah, sure, I'll teach you. this happened after COVID. Literally before COVID was a thing, Tariq Woolen was thinking about catching passes from a quarterback on offense. So when you take a guy like that, you know it's a lottery ticket. You're picking up a lottery ticket. If it pays off, awesome. If it doesn't pay off, too bad. But at least it was cheap. You know, fifth round pick. They don't work out in the NFL all the time. Why not take the guy who could be a superstar? But then you see this. You're like Richard Sherman. Richard Sherman coming in, looking like he's taking the guy under his wing, looking like he's getting really excited for him personally, looking like he's going to be a part of this guy's growth process, trying to get him ready for this week 1 game in Denver, or excuse me, in Seattle against Denver. You're like, the odds of this succeeding just went way up. Now, it had already been going up because we saw him play improved football throughout the preseason. We heard all the good things in camp, et cetera, et cetera. But now it's like, this is kind of exactly what you would want, right? Because Richard Sherman, best cornerback of the 2010s, almost certainly, right? He started starting games midway through 2011 and made a bunch of all-pro teams, won a Super Bowl, played another Super Bowl, perennial Pro Bowler, had that one last great year in Frisco in 2019. So definitely cornerback of the decade. And now he's back here educating Tariq Woolen, who, by the way, I mean, look, measurables are measurables. Measurables do not equal production. But, I mean, if you look at Richard Sherman at the Combine, it was pretty impressive, right? But it's not jaw-dropping, right? Like the height is jaw-dropping. As far as cornerbacks go, Richard Sherman was in the 97th percentile, 6'3". His hand size was big for a cornerback, 90th percentile, 9 3/4. But everything else, I mean, arms longer than average. 40-yard dash was actually bad. Good vert jump, good broad jump, good 3-cone drill, but like the bench press was just okay. The shuttles were below average to actually really bad. Like, they're all over the place. These measurables, like, just speaking on measurables, you would look at this guy and say, yeah, he's unique. But you wouldn't look at that and go, wow, this guy's going to play like no other cornerback in the league. Tariq Woolen has him beat almost everywhere. And again, measurables are just measurables, but he's got him beat in height. He's got him crushed in weight. His wingspan is significantly longer. His arm length, significant. The only thing he doesn't have massive physical advantages in, ironically, is hand size, because that's actually the one area where Sherman was over the top other than height. But you look at these measurables and you're like, this guy is Richard Sherman after steroids and gamma radiation. So, but you look at Sherman, you look at Woolen, and you go, that's what we're looking for, right? You're looking for Tariq Woolen to be the next generation Richard Sherman. You're looking for him to be Sherman 2.0. A big, long cornerback who plays physically and just ends up being that perfect Carroll cornerback. But again, the measurables just have him crushed. He could be Richard Sherman 2.0. And now he's got Richard Sherman 1.0 trying to bring him along. And that doesn't guarantee it's going to work, but it makes you a lot more excited, I think. It makes me a lot more excited. It makes me think this really could work. So there's no guarantee this goes the way we want it to go. But the fact that we're willing to start Woolen week 1, apparently, is a very positive sign. And we have started players in week 1 in previous years, and then they get lit up and we're like, oh, not doing that again. So that in and of itself is no guarantee, but there are other cornerbacks on this team who we could put out there week 1. You could put Michael Jackson Jr. out there if Artie Burns is not healthy. You could you could have not cut Marquise Blair and told him to play outside corner because we love moving him all over the secondary anyway. You could have done different. You could have picked up somebody if Woolen wasn't ready. But by saying you're going to start him, if that is indeed where this is going, you're saying you do trust him. So already he's ahead of schedule. And now he's got probably the perfect guy to teaching him. And let's not forget here, Woolen a willing tackler. The clear hole in his game right now is he's not a good tackler. Well, Richard Sherman, great tackler in his prime for a cornerback. Excellent tackler. So that's the right guy to be teaching that dude how to tackle, because it's not for lack of want. It's not like he's Deion Sanders and doesn't want to tackle anybody because he doesn't care. No, that's not what we're talking about here. This guy wants to tackle. This guy just doesn't totally understand it yet. Sherman might be the right guy to teach him. So, hey, if we end up spending a 5th round pick on a guy again who becomes one of the best, if not the best cornerback in the league again, and it happens because the first guy is teaching the second guy, I mean, there's some really nice kino there. That's a really nice thought to have. And again, have my problems with Sherman, the things that he said, the way that he's acted in some capacity since Super Bowl 49. I'm not a huge fan of it. But business is business. And Richard Sherman getting to work with Tariq Woolen is good for business. So I think the odds of the Tariq Woolen experiment working have gone way up now. And I want to see how this goes, because word is he's starting week 1 again. And if that happens, it's not something I would have expected when we drafted him at all. And if that works, then that's an indication that maybe Sherman is having a positive influence on all that. So let me know what you guys think down below. This is an exciting opportunity. It's scary because it could easily end with Woolen getting torched, picking up a bunch of penalties, just looking silly out there. But there is that possibility that it works out, and maybe a year or two from now, it's really worked out. All right, go Hawks.